Okay. All right. So tonight we're going to, well, first off, for those of you that got your good rest, hopefully everybody got a good rest for this evening, or well, this past weekend. So we are going to be picking up chapter 6. So we're technically halfway through. We're halfway through the program for the course. So we're going to be covering this evening. We're going to end up covering chapter 6, which is going to be real estate finance in regards to the instruments that we use in real estate. Okay, so we're going to go into detail in exactly what type of instruments we end up using in the financing. Now, like I said before, you as real estate agents, y'all don't have to actually know all the specifics. Okay, so in that situation is Ms. Davenport, for example, if you are a real estate agent, you're not going to be the one that's actually going to sit down, say, with Mr. Ayton and say, okay, well, you know, Mr. Ayton, here's your application and we need you to fill it out and give me all the details. You won't have to do that. That goes out to the lender. The lender will then complete all of that stuff with Mr. Ayton. They will then tell you, Ms. Davenport, Ayton has been approved for $300,000. So then that tells you at that point, I can go out now, and now I can go over here with Ayton and show him properties up to that amount. Okay. So in that situation, we're going to talk about the forms and talk about the stuff, but you as an agent aren't actually going to complete that. Okay. So in regards to the instruments of real estate finance, encumbrances and liens. Okay, so we're going to start off with encumbrances and liens. Now, what this does, if you've taken loan contracts, this is what limits your ownership. Okay, this is what limits your rights. So in this particular situation, you do have easements, covenants, voluntary and involuntary liens, and then specific and general liens. Now, what I want everybody to kind of understand is in this situation, okay, a lot of people get these two mixed in regards to encumbrances and easements. These are the ones that a lot of people they get confused and they get mixed. What it is they both are the same thing. They're both the same of affecting ownership, okay, or property rights. But what happens is with encumbrances, this is a category and an easement is underneath that category, okay? So in this particular situation is an encumbrance or a lien. Both of these are things that affect title. So Ms. Davenport, I'm going to assume you probably own a house here in town or own a property. In that situation, Ms. Davenport, for example, you probably might have a lien on your property. If there's a mortgage on said property, then what happens is Ms. Davenport, I'm going to ask you, do you own, if there's a lien, a mortgage, do you truly own your property?
Own it and it's paid for.
That's good. So you're good. But if you had a mortgage, would you technically own it then? So in that situation here, what we're seeing is that when we're talking about encumbrances and liens, okay, an encumbrance is something that, for example, there is a certain kind of element, all right? Maybe, for example, well, I don't have my whiteboard up here, but I'll kind of draw on the screen here for you. Let me pull up my little pen here. Let's see here. There we go, right there. Say, for example, let me put this on the screen over here. Say, for example, that this little square right here, now this little rectangular area here, is going to be Mr. Keith's property, okay? So Mr. Keith owns this property here. He actually he has, in this particular situation, he has a house that's actually right here, okay? So his house is here. The main road goes right here, and there is basically trees all around here. So there's trees all around here. The only road is right here, and Mr. Keith owns this house. Now, what happens, however, is Mr. Keith decides that he wants to sell off his property. He wants to sell it off to you, Mr. Ayton, for example. And Mr. Ayton, you decide that you don't need an entire 10 acres, okay? So Mr. Aiden says, I want to end up in this particular situation. I want to split the property like this. I'm selling off this back portion right here where the house is, and I'm keeping what's called the frontage road, okay? Because the frontage road is the road that has the driving, the main roadway, okay? So Aiden, you decide that you're going to keep this front house, this front part, and what happens in this particular situation is, Aiden, you end up, you put a house right in the middle of that property, okay? Now you're selling off the back portion. Now Mr. Travis, in this particular situation, is interested in this back half of the house, okay, this back portion. Now the key thing is the road runs right here in the front here. Now my question, however, is how in the world is Travis, Mr. Travis, are you going to get? Yeah, he's flapping his hands. He's going to have to fly, right? Well, and that situation is, unfortunately, we ain't got flying vehicles or we can't fly, so he's got to get a way to get to his house, okay? So for that to happen, Mr. Travis would need a road that's going to take him to his property, okay? This little strip right here, this is called an easement, okay? And the reason why is that because of the fact Travis cannot get to his property, he has to have a right-of-way from the main road to get to his property. Now, let me ask y'all this question. Does it have to, or do you think, does it have to be perfectly aligned with the property? No. What could happen is, say for example, in some situations, say Travis, you built this house right here, and you did a little driveway right there to your house. You don't want a huge road on your land. So what you might have done was you may add it onto that road to give him access to his land just here. But now, whose property now, who has to take it from here to here? Travis does. So in this situation is, Aiden doesn't want to have to split his land for the benefit of Travis. He just has to give him a right-of-way to his land, and then Travis, it's up to you to get it from that point to your house. Now, if he puts it there, what happens to your road? You're eating a lot of your land to get to your house. So in that situation is, the question on your exam, when you take your exams, is does this have to end up working perfectly for this person? No. It actually isn't this person to just get a road here. Now, another question is, do you think that this road must be a nice concrete road? No. Say, for example, that Aiden is being mandated. So you went before Judge Davenport here. She told you, Aiden, you must give Travis a road. She told you have to, okay? So because of that, guess what? You can put just some dirt and rock down, and that is a road, okay? But you don't have to make it perfectly aligned for Travis's benefit. Does that make sense? Okay? So that is an easement. Now, understand something else. So this is one method, okay? This is where you have a servitude. This is a servitude estate. This is the dominant estate because this is the one that's dominating this estate, okay? But understand that even though this is considered the dominant part of the property, and this one's serving that property, this person does not get to dictate how the road's going to be done, okay? Another thing is, Aiden, you cannot, in this situation, you cannot yourself go in here and create it where this road is got, say, for example, spikes in it, or things that cause damage to him, okay? You have to make it clear and accessible. You cannot cause harm to his vehicles, okay? There's actually people that, so sad, people will put nails, and they'll stick nails in there, hoping that they'll pop your tires, okay? So yes, and a lot of times I've seen it, guys and gals, over my time. They'll put the easement way over here, make them come through here because it's on that part of it. Come in, and then they have to put a whole road over here, which splits their land. Okay, so a lot of times you have these kind of difficulties, but this is an easement. Okay, and this is an easement that has to be granted. Now, next question is, do you have to have a court order? Does it have to be, do you have to be mandated to give him an access? No, you could end up, both of y'all could agree. You could say, hey, Travis, feel free to drive through my land. But here's the thing, this is where the kicker comes in here, okay? If Travis goes over, all right, and Travis, and you've been driving, say that Aiden's being nice, he'll let you just drive back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and Aiden, now you sell this property off to Miss Leela, okay? Miss Leela, is she now bound to this easement? What do you think, Miss Leela? If Aiden sells this bottom portion here, right where the main, right by the frontage road, Miss Leela, so we're going to say this part right here, and what's going to happen is, let me see if I can't kind of show you what I'm talking about. Right here, okay? So what's happened, Miss Leela, to kind of give you a little show here. So Aiden lived here, Travis lived here. Aiden let Travis drive back and forth on this road, okay? Now Aiden has sold this property to you, Miss Leela, but Travis still lives here. Is this easement that has just been agreed to, is this easement now going to be bound on you, Miss Leela?
I would think I should be able to change that, right?
So in that situation, you're correct. So long as it has been at least 10 years driving back and forth, okay? But if it's only been a few months, then Miss Leila, you would not be bound to that easement, and you could actually tell Mr. Travis he no longer can drive on that road. He has to now go to another area to drive on the road. Do you see how that works?
Yes.
So very good there, by the way. So in that particular situation is Miss Leila is correct, okay? Because the fact is yes, in that particular situation, what happens is that if they ended up in this situation where they had an agreement to drive back and forth, and this person sells, if Travis, you've been driving back and forth on it for 10 years, it's going to stay because you've been doing it for so long. But if you've only been doing it, say, a year or two, or even 3 years, and Aiden sells off, then what happens is this technically goes away because now you got to create a new agreement, okay? And in that situation, Miss Leila could put it way over here in the corner, the right-hand corner, run it up her line, and then you could have had put a new one in there. I'll read. Yep, that's how it works. So in that situation is very important that you know these things, because what happens is guys and gals, this is stuff that is happening daily, okay? This is why we have the court systems. This is how we have counties. Because what happens is the fact of the matter is people get in disputes over this, okay? Especially in rural areas, okay? So in those situations, make certain by all means that you understand that when you're going through these, that you have to know that if it's an agreement, it's in your best interest as a real estate agent. Say, for example, that Mr. Colton, he's representing a client, and Mr. Colton finds out about this, then Mr. Colton should put in the contract that this easement is going to transfer to the new owner, okay? Because otherwise, you don't want to sell this and then get a call from your client down the road and go, Travis calls me after I sold it, and Travis says, well, what did you do, Justin? You caused this, and now I can't get to my property. Well, you don't want all that. And then a lawsuit comes, and then it's just a big old mess, okay? You want to try to make certain that if you see a road that looks like it's going through a property, you need to ask your client, hey, Mr. Aiden, do you have this road, is this public or is this private? Or is it an easement? Well, it's an easement. Okay. Well, is this an agreement or is this a road out? Is this written down? Okay. So all of these are very key in these situations. Okay. Very, very key here. Now, in regards to covenants. Okay. Well, before I move to covenants, I want to talk about one more easement. let me change this and we'll give you a different little hypothetical here. All right, we're gonna drop that, there's that one. So here's a hypothetical. Let's do this here. Come on, draw, there we go. Okay, so here's a hypothetical right here. So what happens is, you end up, here's a house, okay, right here. And what happens is, when your client purchases a house, they are often told, when they get their survey, they'll see something like this. I'm not the best at drawing, so y'all, better than my whiteboards, I promise you. You'll see something here, you'll see something like here, and then you'll see something right here, okay? So what happens is you'll notice up here, so here's your house right here. So this is your plat. This is if you get a survey, if you ever get a survey, well, for my online students to see too. If you ever get a survey, you're going to see, actually, let me see if I can't just pull up the survey for you. Probably be easier. Let's see here. Show y'all. Here we go. Perfect. So let me clear everything off of there. Drawings. Here we go. Let's see if I can't find a good one. Here we go. See if it'll blow up so y'all can see one. Let's see. There we go. Y'all can kind of see that right there. Okay. Not so much about the words that we're not worried about. Okay. But the key thing is, you see here, the survey basically kind of has a dark black line. Okay. That dark boated looking line right here, all this boated here, that's actually the property that you get. That's actually your property. So if you see this boated line, that's actually your ownership. So you own everything that is within this boated line, okay? However, if you notice this little dotted line right there, you barely kind of see it, my mouse isn't going perfect, but it's a little dotted line right there. There's a little bitty dotted line right here, okay? These are what we call setback lines, okay? So if you see right here, you own this black line, this dark black line right here, right in the back, but then there's a little dashed line right through there, okay? That dashed line in between here and here is what we call a setback, okay? A setback line in this particular situation, what occurs is that this is normally a utility setback, okay? So they run utility lines and electricity and power within this little line right here. Now, because there's a utility line right there where we're talking about in between here, what occurs here is this situation. There can be no building in that setback line. Your clients sometimes, and I've had this happen before, a lot of new agents miss this. For example, especially if you're familiar with Grimes County, okay? Grimes County does not have very strict rules, okay, in regards to permits and all. So what happens is, my own parents sold their house. They put, my dad, I remember this, my dad decided on the property, he wanted to put a shed, but he wanted to put the shed close to the fence. So he built this big old shed right up against the fence because it looked nice, okay? Didn't pull any permits, just threw it up there, okay? Put it up here and built it on the setback line. And it's concrete, okay? Now here's the good thing. Here's the positive thing. In regards to if, in this setback line right here, if the property is in Bryan, if you're in Brazos County, your client built a shed right on this setback line, guess what you get to tell them, Aiden?
Tear it down.
Gotta go down. Tear it down before we can even sell it. Tear it down. County will not allow it. City won't allow it. Property will not be able to be transferred until this line is cleared. So my dad, who built this big old shed, had he been in Brazos County, would have had to destroy that thing, and ended up, if you destroy something like that, what happens to the property value now? Okay, so in that situation, here you go. You put that deal right here. You got to tear that down And you, in that situation, if Ms. Davenport, say my dad did that, you're buying the land. If he has to tear it down, do you want to just leave it blank? No, you want what? You want your shed in. So she's going to want my dad to go in and rebuild that shed right there, but in the approved lines. Okay? So in that situation is, I always tell people this all the time, when you go talk to a client the initial time, the very first time you go talk to your client, you should ask them, where's your survey? There's a reason you ask for their survey. Because when you get the survey, you want to look around the property to make certain that they've not built on that setback line. Okay? Now, you'll notice here though, in the front, right by the road here, you can look up here, right here. So here's your road. Okay? There's a setback line from here to here. There's always a setback line at your entrance. And the reason why is because, of course, they run utilities there too. That's how they run water, gas, and all that to the main residence. So what happens is there's this. However, everybody's got to get to their property, don't they? So in that situation, you're going to have to put concrete over this. But I guarantee you, if you've ever owned a home or you ever have rented, you might have seen that sometimes what happens, the city comes in, they need to do some water work or something. What do? They rip up that concrete, they fix the issue, and then they reconcrete it. Okay. But again, the only place that they're going to reconcrete is right in this area, right in the front, because that's the only way you can access the house. However, if the city in the back, that back line that we talked about, if the city cannot in this situation, say there's electrical issues, the city needs to move a building, they can tear that building down. They don't have to rebuild it. Do you see what I'm saying? So in these particular situations we're going to end up, we got to be very careful in regards to how we're going to set things up. Okay? We have to be very, very careful in regards to how this is all going to be done. But it is extremely important that you know that right here, that anything that's normally in this area, they will repair. But anything back here in the back, they're not going to fix it. Okay? So that's why I tell people, a lot of people think when I buy a house, everything in this dark black line all the way around, I can build anywhere on here. Not true. Not true. Okay? It's going to end up, it has to be within your setback lines. I have seen, especially now, you're living in College Station, they build properties on 1/10 of an acre. And when I'm talking 1/10 of an acre, like, I'm not kidding you. Here's a house right here, and I mean, we're talking, there's a house like that. I mean, very little space. You can reach out and knock on your neighbor's window. You got some milk? Can I borrow some milk? But in that situation is truthfully, that little space right there is their setback lines for both ones. Okay? So in those situations, like I tell people all the time is, you can put a lot on it, but I have seen on surveys, guys and gals, where I have seen there's probably very little room other than the residence itself that you can't do any building. Yeah, you may have a backyard, but the backyard is setback. Setback on both sides and setback in the front. So you have very little room. Okay? So again, very key when you're talking to your clients that they understand these concepts. They understand the main purpose here. Because a lot of times, I can tell you, when my dad, when we did his house, my dad, he knows what a survey is. But my mom, when I gave it to her, she was like, talk to your dad. Talk to your dad about that. You know, talk to your dad about that, and he'll take care of it. Okay? And that's how it's always been. Is dad, you know, dads, moms, things of that nature. Moms don't really normally worry too much about this, but you need to know this from the situation is, it's imperative that you understand this. Now, one other key thing here that I want to make clear. Say, for example, that in this situation, Mr. Darren, here's his residence right here. Mr. Darren puts a pool back here. Okay, he puts a pool back here. Well, he's built it correctly. It's within that setback line, so he's good. He's built it there. But here's the thing. When he wants to go sell it, he's pulled the permit, so the permit's good. Everything's legit, everything's taken care of. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. When he pulled, can you make, real quick, could you make one more for Miss Davenport, please? So one more copy so she can have a copy, please. When we ended up in this situation, when he built that pool here, okay, he pulled his permit and everything. What happens is the survey is not automatically done. A lot of people assume that if I go and build a pool, the survey's already done. They changed the survey. No, surveyor does not come out for that. Surveyor may come out and flag the spots that you can build in, but that's all they're going to end up doing. Sir? Copies?
No, unit 6.
Yes, unit 6. So in that situation is they flag it, but they're not going to go redraft it. They're not going to redraft it. So what happens is Darren pulls that and puts the pole right where the mouse is right there, and he now sells that property off to Mr. Jacob. Sends it off to Mr. Jacob. Well, when I go talk to Darren, I say, Darren, I need your survey. Darren gives it to me. I go take it to Mr. Jacob, give it to Mr. Jacob. Mr. Jacob says, okay, thank you. So we ship it off to title, and title immediately flags it. Because of the fact is, you have created another structure that is not showing on the survey. So you have to order a brand new survey because this one's obsolete. It's no good. Now I can tell you here in Bryan College Station, a survey is going to take you 25 to 30 days to get back. They're so far behind. Okay, 25 to 30 days out. So what I end up telling people all the time in this situation is in this particular area, there's going to be any buildings or anything, other structures other than what's showing. If there's a pool here, we have to we got to get a brand new survey. Okay. Now, I get people that say this. Well, what happens if Miss Linda goes out and she puts a 10 little sheds you can buy from Walmart. She puts a 10 shed up and she puts it outside. Now, Miss Linda, do you need a new survey in that situation? You didn't put concrete down. You just ended up, you put a 10 shed up and you just kind of put it in the ground, just kind of put little holes in the ground.
It's movable,
It is movable.
then you will have to.
You don't need it because it's movable.
Right.
Okay. So in that situation here, what happens is because it's movable, it's not a set in stone structure. So because it's movable, we're good. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's very key in these situations is you've got to watch these surveys. You've got to watch the surveys. Guys and gals, I have been doing this for, like I said, over a decade. And I can tell you, your clients, they don't know what a survey is. 99% of the time, this is it. Miss Davenport, you're closed on your property. Well, Miss Davenport, you closed. Here's all the files there, ma'am. Everything's in there for you. Your survey and all. And what's Miss Davenport, like everybody else do? I'm going to go put this in a very secured, maybe at my safe at my house or whatever, and I'm going to lock it up, and I'm never going to look at it again. Right, Miss Linda? That's exactly what's going to happen, right? It's going to go straight into a safe, and she'll never look at them again. Okay?
Unless it's selling.
Unless you're selling it. But in the situation is what happens now. Now Miss Linda goes over, she put it away, she's forgot about it. Now here comes Mr. Eugene building his shed right on the setback line. He's not going to go call anybody, he's just going to build that deal because that's what he wants to build. So he builds it on there. The only time we find out that it's no good is when we go to sell it. Okay? So your clients, a lot of times, guys and gals, your clients end up most of the time, they don't remember this stuff. They don't remember where's the setback line or where's this or where's that. It's just one day, Aiden, you probably know, you're probably with your parents or your dad. Dad gets up one day and says, I want to build a shed. Let's go build one. And I'm going to pour a foundation here. Okay?
That's right.
They're not going to be anybody, let me call out a surveyor to get it posted. No, it's just, let's build. Okay? Guys and gals, the worst one I remember wasn't with my brokerage, was with the brokerage I worked with a long time ago. What happened was a client had actually built a mother-in-law suite in the back of the property on the setback line.
You have to tear it down.
The entire thing had to be torn down. The entire thing had to be torn down and had to end up they had to rebuild it.
How far is the setback line?
They range.
Oh.
They like we were talking about here. If you look in the front, this one gives you 15 feet. This one in the back gives you 10 feet.
Oh,
So you look here, it tells you, now like I was telling in the beginning, the front part where the road's at, the 15 feet, you gotta have some road to get to your house.
right.
So if you say, for example, they need to pull up the concrete to fix, city will fix that for you, because that's your main way to your house. But if you put stuff back here in the back where there's no driveway,
They tear it up.
they tear it down, they ain't fixing it. That's on you,
Ah,
okay? Because the fact is, you weren't supposed to build it. Okay, so yes, sir.
so if you don't know, can you just call the city and ask, hey?
Nope.
No.
You have to
City
have
is
a
not going to
permit.
come out. You got to call the surveyor to come out and reflag it.
Oh,
And the surveyor, now let me explain something. The surveyor is only going to flag, say Miss Davenport, the survey. Miss Davenport's only going to survey for full flags for the corners where the dark bold lines are.
so they ain't gonna have.
She's not going to tell you.
That you got a setback
Yes.
line of 15 feet. or 10
She's
feet
just
or
going to
whatever.
flag these corners of the bold lines. It is your duty to pull your survey and count 15 feet in to start building. Because here's the thing, is poor Miss Davenport, she goes out there, and if she was to do that, and she says, okay, Eugene, you can put it, say she tells you half the distance of 15, and she flags it, and you build, now who's liable for that? Poor Miss Davenport. And now you can sue her.
Oh.
So she ain't gonna do that. She's gonna tell you, boom, 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 boom.
You're on
There you go, Mr. Eugene. Bye. And that's $500. Uh-huh. And that's what she does. She's gonna walk on down on her happy way. That's her job. Okay? So it is your duty that if you want this done, you have to count it out. And then if you really want to get it done, get a permit, you want to maybe even ask the city to come out and have them look and say, this is where I want to mark it, and go from there. Yes, Mr.
How
Travis?
do I get into that if you want?
In the surveying?
No, if all you do is to.
It's not always that easy.
Walk off, I feel like I.
Well, let me put it this way. It's very difficult to get into surveying, extremely difficult to get into surveying. And most of the time you have to work for free for 2 years before you can get eligible to sit for the license exam.
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm kind of busy. I got other stuff.
So, but yeah. So like I said, I mean, I'm not going to beat this horse dead. I probably already have. But like I said, I just want you to kind of have an understanding and the feel of what it is with a survey. Because when dealing with surveys, guys and gals, it's very much, a lot of times I see this in real estate a lot, and it drives me crazy. Aiden goes out, he's a new agent. He goes over to, say, Mr. Jacob, says, Mr. Jacob, oh, yes, sir, Mr. Eugene.
Now you're saying the front and the back, is that also the same with the sides too?
Depends. This one doesn't have it. If you notice here, the setback line actually starts on the opposite side of your black line here down the bottom.
Oh, so you'd be right up against
So
that.
you could be up on this one,
Okay, so what's-
but not on this one, because look, it's set back on yours on this side.
Okay.
So, and they vary.
Yeah.
They vary, okay?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So Mr. Aiden, what happens most of the time is you call Mr. Jacob, and you tell Mr. Jacob, you say, Mr. Jacob, Justin said he needs a survey from you. Mr. Jacob says, certainly, Aiden, come on by, got it for you. So Mr. Aiden, he comes, he gives it to you, you take it, what happens? Doesn't even open it. New agents don't do it. Doesn't open it. Sits it right on the broker's desk. Okay? Walks off. Okay? I come in, I pull out the thing, pull out the survey, sit here, I start looking. Aiden, where are you at? Get in here. He comes in here. What is this, Aiden? What, you didn't tell me about your client there, Mr. Jacob did this. Weren't you following up with this? I didn't know. I thought I'd just take it and I just throw it on your desk. Not how this works. Okay? I'm just picking on Aiden. I'm just picking here. But the key thing is that they don't end up, you don't watch these things. You want to make certain that in this particular situation, that Aiden feels that he's done his due diligence. Because a lot of times, the broker, now I'm going to tell you, a lot of times, some people don't have a broker. Like the broker signs them and you never see them again. That does happen in some situations. So if Aiden didn't have me to review it, Aiden would have just gone down to title, receipted it at title, and then waited until somebody told him something was wrong, if they catch it. If they catch it. I've had that happen before, where they don't catch it. So what happens is it is imperative that you should look at this plat to make certain that it faces exactly what it is, because otherwise you could face a lawsuit, and you don't want to deal with that kind of things. And of course, that's why you want to get mentored and you want somebody to watch you, because these are very important situations. I mean, it can be very major for some people. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is what we call covenants, okay? And covenants in some situations is that there are covenants in regards to what we're going to convey. So if you want to take notes on that, covenant means conveyance, okay? What I'm conveying. So, for example, what could happen is Mr. Colton could end up, he could possibly be selling his house, okay? So he's selling his house and he's selling his surface rights, but he's not selling his mineral rights, okay? Or he might not even be selling his air rights, okay? He's just selling the house and the surface. So he's conveying the property for the surface and the house. But anything underneath the house and anything above the house, he's reserving, he's keeping. Okay, he's reserving those rights. So what happens is because there's covenants, that basically means while in the situation, if Colton is selling that house and say that Miss Leela purchases that house, Miss Leela truthfully is not getting full ownership, because the fact is she only owns the house and the surface. She doesn't own the stuff underneath or the stuff above. Okay. Now I'll tell you all this just so y'all save yourself a lot of headaches. When you're working with clients, and they're selling a house, okay, this happens a lot of times. And it's not that they don't know or that they're not intelligent enough, you can say. It's the fact of the matter is people just think that when I sell my subdivision house, say Mr. Eugene, Miss Linda, they'll say I want to sell my house and my subdivision. A lot of times, first thing that comes out of their mouth is, well, I want to reserve my minerals in my subdivision house. Okay. Well, here's the thing. Do you think that in the back of Mr. Eugene and Miss Linda's house, Mr. Aiden or Mr. Grossman or Mr. Travis, do y'all think you can fit a big old oil rig in the back of their property? No, it's in a subdivision. Okay. You're not going to be able to convey or to keep those things, because the fact is, let me tell you, first off, the person that most likely has the minerals, guess who they are? It's the developer. The developer, when he sold it, restricted the minerals and started selling off the lots. So if there's any minerals, the developers get it, okay? Not the people that own the houses in the subdivision. But it's basically the covenants. These are things that we're going to convey. These are the things that you're getting. And that's why they're talking about there being encumbrances or liens, because a covenant could restrict what all you technically own, okay? Now, we have voluntary and involuntary liens, okay? A lien in this situation is basically in this concept. A lien is where we go over and it's a debt, okay? So in that particular situation in a lien, you want to make certain by all means that you understand that that debt, okay, is going to end up, you want to make certain by all means that that debt is actually going to end up being paid. Voluntary and involuntary are two separate things. Now I'm going to tell you something. And Ms. Davenport, you worked in this part of the county, so you probably know what I'm talking about. When you're married, guess what? Miss Linda, when you married Mr. Eugene, half of your stuff now belongs to Mr. Eugene, and vice versa. Okay? So in that situation, it's 50-50.
Right, but some
Okay.
people don't think that though.
Now, they don't all the time. They don't all the time.
Yeah,
But it's 50-50.
am I right?
Okay. So in that situation if say for example, Miss Linda, you had debts that you didn't pay, and you had a bunch of debts, and you married Mr. Eugene, and he had no debts. Guess what? half of your debts go to Mr. Eugene.
That's because it's what?
Yeah, you get to pay for it.
Worse.
Yes.
That wasn't in the contract.
Yeah,
I
no, I'm
signed.
sorry. When you went to Miss Davenport, she stamped that thing, you were done. That's it.
I get a review on
No. So in that situation is, you've got voluntary and involuntary. So what happens is, the key thing, the difference is this, a voluntary is this. Voluntary is when you go down. You want to buy a house? That's voluntary debt. You chose to get that debt. You go buy a car? That's voluntary. You chose to get it. Any of those are going to be things like student loans. You go to school, you pay it with a student loan, that's voluntary. You chose to put yourself into those debts. Credit cards, voluntary. Okay? Involuntary is going to be your taxes. You don't pay your taxes, you didn't agree to it, but guess what? They're going to come assess it. They're going to come take it. Okay? And they will get what they want. Okay? You do not mess. I always tell people this all the time. You don't mess with the tax man or woman. You don't mess with them. They will take your stuff in a heartbeat and get gone.
They're like a loaded gun.
You don't mess with them. You don't mess with them. So in that situation another one is a judgment. So for example, we just talked about credit cards. So Mr. Eugene, let's continue with our hypothetical. Miss Linda goes over and she owes, say for example, she owes $50,000. Okay? You're married, so you get 25. You get half her debt. Okay? So in this situation, should have read that. Oh, Travis, by the way, he I'm gonna say a Jim here. But in the situation is yes, it's 50-50. So like I said, is credit card, when Miss Linda got that debt, it was voluntary. She racked it up. She voluntarily did that. But guess what? Miss Linda doesn't pay. If Miss Linda doesn't pay, Miss Linda, guess what? If Mr. Travis, guess what? Miss Linda didn't pay you that $50,000 on the credit card. Yep. She didn't pay you.
Cough it up.
Yep. So now Mr. Travis sues you, and Judge Ayton now gives a judgment to you, Mr. Travis, that Miss Linda, you now owe him $50,000. Well, because of that, guess what? It's involuntary now. It went from voluntary to involuntary. Because voluntary, she chose to do that. But because she did not pay and she breached her contract, Ayton gave a judgment, which now makes it involuntary. And Mr. Eugene, because you're married to her, 50% of that, Travis can come to collect. Now let me tell you this, here's even better. If you combined your accounts and you have a joint account, Mr. Travis can come get the entire amount. Okay, even if it's all your money. Yes. So in that situation it's very important that you understand these voluntary and involuntary. I tell people all the time, it's easy to get into debt. It's easy. You want to go get in debt, guys and gals? Go get on the internet and go apply. You get a credit card tonight, probably. Okay? They'll ship it out in 5 to 7 days. It'll be in your mailbox. That's voluntary. But let me tell you, if you don't pay, they're going to come after you. And they're going to come after you hard. They're going to get their money. Okay? And that's an involuntary. And here's why we're talking about it in real estate. A lot of people say, well, why are we talking about this in real estate? Well, here's why. Mr. Travis just got that debt, that judgment from me. If there's no money, Mr. Eugene, that you and Miss Linda have, he wants to get paid. And he wants to be guaranteed he's getting his money. Guess how he's going to do that? He's going to walk right on down to the Brazos County Clerk's office, and he's going to come down and say, Miss Davenport, here is a lien or judgment that I'm going to file on Mr. Eugene and Miss Linda's property. Can you file that, please? That thing gets attached with your deed. And guess what? When you sell that property, Mr. Eugene, Miss Linda, he gets his money. He gets his money. And he will get a check from title for that $50,000. So in that situation voluntary and involuntary liens are very important.
That's if I sell the house, but what if I don't sell the house?
Well, if you don't, he's still gonna try to collect from you.
I s-
But ultimately, let me just put it this way. Somebody's eventually gonna sell the house. Now, Mr. Travis may pass away by the time it happens, but his estate is gonna get paid one way or another. Okay? Because here's the thing about judgments a lot of people don't think. See, when you get a judgment, it's only good for 10 years. So you file it, it's good for 10 years. But here's the thing. After 10 years, a lot of people don't know this, but after 10 years, guess what? Travis can go down and renew it for another 10.
If he doesn't have senior moments.
Elizabeth's got it down. She's got it wrote down, right? There you go. So in that situation is yes, we end up, we're basically, they can renew it. And they can renew it for guess what? Another 10 years. And they can continue to renew it indefinitely for 10 years.
What if he forgets?
If it's not renewed, then it dies. So by the, it has to be renewed within
How
that time
long
frame.
does it have to go
I'm never
before
gonna
it
forget.
dies?
Huh?
You never forget.
I'm never gonna forget.
Yeah, it's never 50 grand. Yeah, oh, and let me add one more thing a lot of people miss.
Probably interest in it too.
That's right. Interest rate's 18%.
Ooh.
18%. So every year, 18%, and it compounds. Okay? So we looked at that the other day on percentage, and at 5%, that was almost double. Imagine 18%.
Ooh.
Okay? You're gonna spend a ton.
You won't never have to work.
You'll miss 8, yeah, that's right. Travis will be set financially for the rest of his life with that loan. But again, the key thing, like I tell people this is all the time, is understand that voluntary, unfortunately, a lot of times turns into involuntary. Okay? But both of these types affect your ownership interest in real estate. Okay? Because the fact is that when we're dealing with these situations, you have this voluntary, involuntary liens. They affect how you have your ownership, but they ultimately can also force the sale of the property if you can't pay. Okay. Now, again, there are also specific and general liens. Okay. When you get a house, you get a mortgage. Guess what? You have a general lien. Because the fact is it kind of encompasses everything that deals with a house. You go buy a car, it's a specific. Okay, basically deals with one. Another thing is you have mechanic liens. Okay, mechanic liens are liens where, like we said earlier, where Darren built a pool, and he put the pool back there, Stephen, you built it for him. Okay, and then Darren, you never can get a hold of him again after the pool's done. You put a mechanic's lien on his property to end up to get your money from. Okay. So again, there are these different options, but each one of these bullets that are here, each one of these ultimately focuses upon the ownership of the property, how it's handled, how it's managed, who can sell it. All of these basically dictate your ownership in the property. Okay. Now, the next thing that we want to end up looking at is basically going in here. We want to look at the differences in regards to title, lien, and intermediate theories. Now, there is different ways in regards to how we focus on these elements, okay? Now, one thing that I want to explain in this particular element here is there are different types of theories, okay? And what we're talking here is how you actually own title. Now, in the state of Texas, Mr. Eugene here, when you purchased your house, did they give you a deed that basically ended up you own property?
No.
Are you certain?
They gave me a copy of this, what you see in our.
You got a deed.
Yeah.
You got a deed.
But I don't have.
But what did they attach immediately after they filed that deed? The mortgage.
Yeah, where?
So what happens is if this was your deed, yeah, you have ownership, but guess what happens? Right after they filed that with the county, instantaneously, bam,
Yeah.
there's your debt.
Yep.
You owe us money,
That's right.
okay? So what happens is if anybody goes and looks up this deed, what are they gonna run across first?
They're gonna see the mortgage.
They're gonna see that mortgage,
Oh, yeah.
okay?
Deeds on the back. You gotta
That's
look
right.
at that.
This gentleman, if I go look it up, And let me ask real quick, Ms. Davenport's done this. Ms. Davenport, at the county, could any of these fine ladies and gentlemen, could they go down there and look through the records that are public? Yes, they can. And do y'all hold a gun to their heads and don't look at it? No. You go right ahead and look and feel free to walk through it. Okay? So in that situation, anyone can go in there, pull the stuff, and see that Mr. Eugene, you owe so-and-so money. Okay? You have a deed, but you owe somebody. Okay? So here in Texas, what happens is we end up utilizing kind of a hybrid approach between a title and a lien, okay, where we do give you title to the property, but we also hit a lien right after, okay? So we don't end up, kind of like when you buy a car and you got a loan on the car, they don't issue you the title. What happens is once you pay it off, here's your title, okay? But in property, you actually get the deed, but immediately in front of it's going to be your debt. Okay? So by all means, it's important that you understand it. Now, there are some states that they don't even give you the deed or the title. Some states actually operate like the DMV does here in Texas. You actually end up, you want to buy some property, they hold the title, certificate of title, the county owns it, you pay your payments, and when it's done, they issue you a certificate of title. They don't do it either. They just do a certificate of title. Okay? But there are different ways in regards to how they do that. Again, different types of methodology. Okay? Now, there's a difference here I want y'all to see in regards to equitable and legal rights. Very important here. Okay? So, Mr. Grossman, for example, I'm going to use you for example, sir. Mr. Grossman, do you have a client right now that's under contract? Yes, you do. So technically, that client could end up in a situation. That client is under contract. Have they bought the house? Has the house funded? No. They're still in the process, right? Mm-hmm. So while that person is in the process, so they have come to an agreement when two parties sign an agreement, okay? When two parties go over and sign, say Mr. Keith and Mr. Colton, they sign a contract, okay? They both agree. Mr. Keith is selling his property to Mr. Colton. Mr. Keith goes over, he signed it off to Mr. Colton to go ahead and do his inspections. At the moment that both parties have signed and dated the contract, if Mr. Keith is a seller, he is giving equitable title to Mr. Colton. You're going to say, you there? There we go. So, but in that situation is he gives equitable title over to Mr. Colton. Okay. Now what this means, a lot of people say, wait, Professor, wait a minute. You're telling me that even though they've not closed, somebody has equitable interest, already has equitable title? Yes. Yes. Here's why. Because that client needs to do what to the property before purchasing? They need to find out what's wrong with the property, right? Yeah, they need to do inspections. So say that Mr. Colton's purchasing Mr. Keith's property. If Mr. Colton doesn't have equitable title, he's considered a trespasser on the property, and guess what? Could be shot here in Texas. Okay? And if that was the laws, how many of y'all would be real estate agents now? Everybody would be like, nope, I'm out. Okay? So in this situation, not going to deal with it. Okay? So equitable rights or equitable title gives the right for that individual to come on the property to perform inspections. Okay? To perform their inspections, perform their extensive review, and make a determination, do I want to purchase this property or do I not? Okay? Now, again, we have legal and statutory. Okay? Now, legal rights, of course, are the last of the last. Okay? So when Mr. Mr. Keith finally signs over ownership to Mr. Colton, then the legal rights have now been transferred, and now Mr. Colton has full ownership. Okay? Now, there is, in some states, that's different. So this is what we use. We use equitable and legal here in Texas. In other states, they use equitable and statutory redemption. And what happens here is when you end up, when you go under contract, Travis say, I sell you my property, we're going under contract, you technically got equitable and legal rights immediately. They just call it equitable. Okay? But here's the thing, is I have statutory, because the law says that if you don't do something within a certain amount of days, then I statutorily get my redeem of my property. I get my rights back. Okay? So in this situation, I always tell people it's like 50-50. Okay, you give away first 50, and you give the other 50 at funding. Here you're given 100 and can redeem it at a later time. Okay, so very key in these situations. Now, contractual agreements. Now understand, people say this all the time. My mother says it still to the day, and she works with me, and it'll take some time. But most of y'all probably have heard your family, or you've said it yourself, where I got to pay my mortgage this month. Got to pay my mortgage. Is that correct, Mr. Ayton? What's it called? What are you paying actually?
No.
Paying the note. You're paying the note. You're not actually paying the mortgage. Okay? The mortgage is what you actually go down to the county for. You go down to the county and you file that part, Mr. Eugene, we talked about earlier. There's the deed. Boom. There's the mortgage. Okay? That's the document that tells Aiden, if you go down there to look to buy Mr. Eugene's property, this is the form that tells you that Mr. Eugene owes Mr. Grossman money. See how that works? So in that particular situation that is the mortgage. It's the notice. Now let me explain something here. Do you think mortgages include the amount of the debt? What's that, Miss Linda?
I don't think so.
You're correct. They don't. Because the fact is, how many of y'all want to go down and find out how much everybody owes on their mortgage? Y'all want to go see that? We said Miss Davenport said it's open record. How many of y'all want to go down there and see everybody's business?
There's some people are like that.
Some people are like that,
They
but
busybodies.
you don't want that notice. That's private information. Imagine if Elizabeth, I came over and I said, Elizabeth, open up your checkbook. I want to look at all your stuff. I want to see how much money you got. She's going to say, excuse you? Right? None of your business. Get out of here.
I wouldn't
Right?
be saying it that nice.
Yeah. Right? Right? Hit the door, Justin. None of your business. Okay?
Who has
So-
a checkbook?
Leland, do you carry a checkbook with you?
I don't know if she heard.
No, I do not.
Oh,
See, you're with me, woman.
But the key thing here is, like I said, we don't want to end up, you don't want that information out there. It's private. We don't want to share our banking information or any of that. That's hush hush. So what happens is it's a little interesting, okay? A lot of people think, and I just want to poll y'all real quick. And those of you sitting in the classroom here real quick, we already talked about note and note mortgage, note and deed trust. Which of these two do you think Texas is? So raise your hand if you think note and deed or trust is Texas. Raise your hand. 2, 3. Okay. How many think it's note and mortgage? Nobody. Okay. I can't see. I got a big old blind spot here. Was that you raising your hand?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not. And here's the problem. It's not that you're wrong, because in Texas, what does our parents always say?
Mortgage.
Gotta pay my mortgage. That's what your parents say. My mom says, my dad says it. Okay?
That's what we were taught.
Correct. That's what you're taught. But in Texas, we're a note and deed of trust. We're not a note and mortgage. Because here's why. The reason that we're not a note and mortgage is because if we're a mortgage, here's the thing. Let's go back to, like I said, Mr. Eugene, you bought your property, you filed it with Miss Davenport, there's the deed, and then boom, there's a mortgage. Okay? Now here's the thing. If Mr. Travis is your banker, and he lends you that money, well, here's the problem. If you stop paying, guess what you got to do, Mr. Travis? you got to take this mortgage here and you got to go prove it up in court. So you got to go to Mr. Aiden and get on his schedule to end up to prove up this debt. Okay? Well, Mr. Aiden, he loves to go out and he likes to go golfing and he likes to go on nice trips and he likes to do all these things. Okay? And he enjoys, and he only works out of 12 months, he works 6. And he also hears criminal cases, civil cases, all this. So he's pretty booked. Okay? If you ever worked in the county or worked in any court systems, you know, judges, they're backlogged. Okay? Backlogged. So, Mr. Travis, the soonest that you can get before Judge Aiden is probably 2 years. Well, guess what? Mr. Eugene, Miss Linda, are you going to be able to get out?
1 minute.
So in this particular situation, what happens?
Are you going?
What happens in this particular situation? Well, you just got to wait. You got to wait, Mr. Travis, to get before you. So while he's sitting there for 2 years, guess what you and Miss Linda are going to be doing? Enjoying life and not paying no rent or mortgage. You get to stay there as long as you want.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, here's the best part. Here's the best part. Is in this situation, it's an advantage to the debtor or the borrower than the creditor. Now, towards the end, when you finally get them evicted, that entire 2 years, Mr. Travis, while they lived there, my question is this for you, sir. 2 years they lived there. Do you think they took care of that house at all?
No.
What did they do to it?
They trashed it.
They trashed it. They destroyed it. Because they know they're about to get kicked out.
Yeah.
They're going to just destroy it. So then they get kicked out, and now, and now what ends up happens is now Mr. Travis has to, not only did he lose money on the deal, because since they trashed it, the value of the property did what?
Went down.
So not only did he lose money, but now he's going to go in and lose more to fix it up. Okay? So what happened in this particular situation is Texas is a deed of trust. We still use the note, but what happens instead of Mr. Travis putting a mortgage, he's putting a deed of trust. And it's actually a deed. Now, this on the test, on your licensing exam, they're going to say deed of trust equals a trust. No. It is a trust, but it's a financing instrument. It's not a trust. Got to get that correct, okay? So what happens in this particular situation is Mr. Travis, Mr. Eugene, he doesn't pay you the first month. So the first month lapse, he doesn't pay. So he's going to send you collection notes. Second month, you don't pay. It's another one. Third month, you don't pay. He's invoking the deed of trust. So he calls up, guess what? The attorney that's the trustor, Mr. Stephan back here, and tells him, or it's trustee, not trustor, trustee, Mr. Stephan, that you're not paying. He's going to go down to the Judge Aiden here, doesn't need a full hearing, just going to go down and say he's breached his contract. Here's the proof. Please sign off on this. Judge agrees to it. Guess what ends up happening? The house is immediately taken away and given back to Travis.
I didn't have time to trash it.
That's right. You didn't have time to do nothing.
Yeah, you're right.
Because he gets his property back. So in that situation, guys and gals, it's extremely important that you understand the differences between a note and deed of trust and a note and mortgage. Now, a contract for deed is a huge one. And guys and gals, this is something that is very important, especially if you have family that don't have good credit and they're trying to buy a house and they do seller financing. Because unfortunately, there are some crooked people in this world. Okay? Yes, unfortunately. So a contract for deed is this. Mr. Grossman back there, okay, he's one of the most slime ball, people in Bryan College Station.
That's why he's my lawyer.
He's your lawyer? So in that situation, what he does is this. He goes over and he puts a property up that he owns, puts a property up for sale by owner. And Mr. Aiden comes up and says, I'm a poor college kid. I don't have money to buy or whatever. Can we work something out? So Mr. Stephan says, of course. He's over there just, man, about to make a ton of money off this idiot. That's what he's thinking, okay? So Aiden, he goes back there. You go over there and y'all come to terms. He says, you know what, Aiden, I'll make you a deal. Make you a deal, Mr. Aiden. I'll let you move in. How much can you pay a month? $1,000 a month? Okay, that sounds good. Well, Mr. Aiden, I got a deal for you. Here's my deal. Mr. Aiden, I'm going to let you move into the house, okay? Interest is going to be 7%. Not too bad interest. Let you move into the house, 7%. You pay me 30 years. After 30 years, your payments have to be on time. I'll let you end up, you can buy the property from me. You're going to pay me 30 years. And you're going to pay me, here's the key, you're going to pay me, Mr. Aiden. You got to bring your check to me in person at my house on the 3rd of each month. Okay?
I can do that.
So Mr. Aiden is like, yeah, I got me a place, got me a house. I'm win-win here. Okay? So Mr. Aiden goes over. Mr. Aiden pays 29 years every time at his house on the 3rd, every time. Right spot on it every time. Okay, the money's there. Well, the last payment.
You were late.
No, the last payment, Mr. Aiden goes over and he's going to write his last check. He walks up there to Mr. Stephan's door and knocks on Mr. Stephan's door. He's just smiling. He's ready to pay that last check so he can get the deed, because it's a contract for deed. He's ready to get that deed. Knocks on the door. Nothing. Knocks on the door. Nothing. Knocks on the door. Nothing. Now Mr. Aiden's getting what? Getting worried. I've got to pay him on the 3rd. So he starts calling Stephan. No answer. Knocking on the door. No answer. What do you do, Aiden? You got to pay him by the 3rd. If you don't pay him by the 3rd, the 4th, you breached the contract. What would you do?
Take a picture of myself and timestamp it.
Okay, so you take a picture of yourself, you're going to leave it on his porch.
Yeah.
Okay? And you leave. Okay, so he leaves. He left, walked on down. He's like, all right, that's fine. I left him. But here's the thing. The contract said, Mr. Aiden, that you must pay him by the 3rd. Did you pay him by the 3rd? No, you did not pay him by the 3rd, and guess what that means? Because you did not pay him by the 3rd, guess what? You have breached your contract, and guess what? Because you breached your contract, you lost the entire 29 years and 11 months of payments and the house. Mr. Stephan, you happy?
In my situation, yeah.
In your situation, heck yeah.
Kind of slimy and greasy.
Yeah, slimy and greasy, yeah. But in your situation, heck yeah, you walk away with a ton of money and you got to keep your house.
If I was Aiden, I'd be taking me down with him.
Yeah, yeah. If you were Aiden, you'd be coming to hunt you down right with you.
Kidding.
But in that situation is yes. That's why I tell people this all the time in real estate. Your client ever tells you, and unfortunately, I have a good friend of mine, we went to school together, he can't get a loan. He's very low income. He doesn't have much money, not much things. If somebody presented him an offer for one of these type contract for deed crap, and he came to me and said, I'm thinking about doing it, Justin. They said they can work with me, and they're only going to take 50% of my income a month to pay to it. And, you know, after 30 years, I'll get this. And I said, no. You're not going to do that. You're not. But I mean, nope, you're not going to do that. Not at all. Because the fact is I knew what they were going to hook him into. They were going to get him in, he was going to pay his payments, he was going to think he's building equity, and then sure enough, at the very end, they were going to rip the rug from underneath him and leave him broke. Okay? You do not ever do a contract for deed until your client has sought legal advice. That is the only time that you yourself need to be referring them out. Of course, you would want to tell them if they have questions, but the main thing is they must go get the attorney to review the contract for deed. No ifs, ands, buts about it. None. Because of the fact of the matter, guys and gals, I'm just telling you this all right now, okay? It is imperative that the clients understand what they might get themselves into. Guys and gals, I'm going to tell you, it's sad that this happens. It's so sad. I've been doing this for a while, and I had a person, low-income family, that was in a contract for deed. They were paying their payments on time, doing everything like they're supposed to. And the seller decided one day that somebody came in with a higher than what they're, I'll just give you the example of what happened. I'm not going to tell you their names, but I'll tell you what happened. They had done back in early 2000, they did a contract for deed with this guy, $150,000 for this house. They had paid 15 years on this house, on time, consistently. A person from Houston came in and offered this guy $250,000 cash for that house. Guess what this guy did? He accepted this contract, even though he's in contract with this person for contract for deed, and told this person, I ain't giving you no money back either. I'm pulling the house, selling it, and I'm keeping all your money. Had I not got involved with it, because one of my agents actually ran into them, they were actually going to lunch one day, and this lady was crying and all, and my agent, big heart as she did, she went over there to talk to them. And she found the whole situation out. She immediately called me, told me what was going on, and I told her, you know, we need to get an attorney in here. We need to get this taken care of. They need to stay their ground. Don't dare move. Stay in that house. You're not in breach. They are, not you. Stay in your house. Because the owner was threatening to go in and yank all their stuff out of their house. Okay? They're not in breach. But let me tell you, they will keep, some people in contract for deeds love to bully other people. And that's where they need a strong realtor by their side. That's where they need a strong realtor. Had me and Miss Brandy, had we not went over there and fought tooth and nail, we fought tooth and nail. Yeah. We literally fought tooth and nail with them, brought in the attorneys that we knew and everything. We were able to save them. And they were able to keep their house and everything. But I'm going to tell you, with these contract for deeds, it's sad. They often prey on low income, undereducated minority communities. And it's sad. Okay? It's extremely sad. Because of the fact is that they know they're not educated, they have very few funds, so they can't hire an attorney. And they know they're minority, which is already a area that is already kind of pushed down already. So they take advantage of these people. Okay? It is your duty as a realtor to stand up for your clients. And I've been on some very tough phone calls, because the fact is I'll call their BS. I'll call it right away. But there will be times that you will be faced with something like this as an agent. Your duty is to advise your client. Your duty is not this. Now, I always play this hypothetical out because I want you to see how important this is. Okay? Mr. Aiden is a brand new real estate agent, we'll say. Never sold a house in his life, never done a lease, never done nothing. Nothing. He has no money, he's broke, he's poor, and he runs into Mr. Stephan, who ends up Mr. Stephan wants to buy a house for Mr. Eugene. Mr. Eugene is paying, because he's trying to entice realtors, is paying 10%. 10% he's paying to end up to go over there and to go and buy, and for the commission to bring a buy. Okay? So Mr. Aiden, starving, needing money, gets Mr. Steffen to sign that contract without advising him to go get a real or an attorney to review it. Because Aiden, you end up you make $10,000 on that transaction.
Every dog ate.
That's a lot of money, right?
Oh, yeah.
I take care of you for a poor student, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 10 grand. So Mr. Aiden's over here for $10,000. He does a contract for, he gets his client locked into a contract for deed, and he doesn't tell his client nothing. If you do that, guess what happens? You did not advise your client. You can be sued up to 3 times for deceptive trades and practices because you breached your fiduciary duty. So while you got your $10,000, Mr. Aiden, go ahead and take that 10 grand and hire Miss Davenport here as your attorney, because she's going to charge you 10 grand to try to save you from getting $30,000 in the hole. Did you profit any, Mr. Aiden?
No.
But what did you just pick up? A huge headache.
Yeah.
And possibly $30,000 in debt.
Bad business.
Yeah. So you never, ever, ever put money above. I've had this happen. I've seen this happen in many people. I'm not saying, Aiden, that you don't do it. I'm saying the fact is you allow your client to get advised. Once they are advised, then if he still wants to proceed, you're clear. But you need to at least get them advised. Okay? Now, junior finance documents. Now, of course, we don't know too much about this, but these are debts that are basically debts that are underneath. Okay? These are kind of secondary. So they don't have as much weight. Now, I think we talked about this in a previous class, but say, for example, that this is why it's important. This is extremely important. A lot of people don't give the county clerks down at the local county, they don't give them credit. But those people, men and women down there at work, they deal with a lot of crap, okay? And they deal with a lot of headaches, okay? But I'm going to tell you something, guys and gals. Those individuals play a huge role in real estate. Huge. Not small, huge. Especially from the financing industry. Okay? So, Miss Linda, you bought a house for Mr. Let's not pick on him too much. Mr. Travis. Okay? You bought a house for Mr. Travis. Your credit's not so good though. Okay? So, yeah, you still owe him that $50,000 back there. You keeping tabs back there?
I'm writing it all down.
Okay.
Oh, never get out of there if I have me.
What's the interest rate on that?
Oh, it's like 42,
40. Okay, good. So you're set. You're set for life.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Darren, I need help.
So you go over there and you got bad credit, and you end up you had to get 2 loans. Miss Davenport, being the sweet lady she is, she's your friend, best friend. She says, Linda, I'll give you $50,000. You're gonna sign a note. I'll give you $50,000 to buy. And then Aiden, or well, the bank, Mr. Travis, says, I'll give you the other $50,000. Okay, so you got 2 notes. All right. But here's the thing. Mr. Travis, he is in Washington, D.C., so everything he's got to do, he's got to mail to the county. Now, Miss Linda, Miss Davenport, your friend here, she lives here. So immediately after she signs, Miss Davenport runs down to the county and files. Well, if she files first, and then Travis comes in and files second, who has priority?
She does.
She does.
She does.
Because
Now, let me ask this question. I want to change it for a second. What happens if she only gave you 50 and Mr. Travis had given you 200? And Miss Davenport, she goes files, and then Travis's comes in the mail later, and his 200. Now who's in priority?
She's still, because she's first.
She's still in first come, first served.
Right.
So Miss Davenport, even though it's 200, this is 50, Miss Davenport is first. She's the senior priority loan holder.
Right.
Mr. Travis is junior. Okay? So the house sells because you foreclosed, you didn't pay your taxes. So taxman Aiden over here walks down, takes your house and sells it at tax note because you didn't pay your taxes. And he sells it for $150,000. And you borrowed $250,000. Now, how much, well, let's ask this real quick. Travis, let me ask you this question. Well, no, I don't, because you already know it. How much does Miss Davenport get? Because remember, the whole debt was 200, and Miss Davenport did 50, so it's 250 total. How much does the 150 go off Travis because his is the highest debt? No.
It will be
She
divided.
gets her,
How's it divided?
she gets
Her
her
first,
50.
yeah.
She gets her 50, so when they look at it, they're gonna look at first come, first served.
Right.
Well, Miss Davenport, $50,000 of the 150. Miss Davenport, you are paid off $50,000. Mr. Travis, she owes you 200. We gave 50 to Miss Davenport, so there's 100,000. We give you half your money back from Miss Linda.
I'm salty.
Yep. So there's some more. That's not more that she owes you, by the way. Okay.
That's
But-
all right.
Isn't that-
50, I'll keep that.
Remember, I'll start eventually.
But again, like I said, is yes, there's a reason with these junior finances because these junior finances play a huge role in regards to the everyday life of real estate. Okay, that's that point is that's why Travis would want to have gone. Say, for example, that Travis had filed first, and then Miss Davenport, and they sold it for 150. Now, how much would Travis have got?
He would have 150.
He would have got 150 with a $50,000 judgment against Miss Linda.
Right.
And Miss Davenport would have got 0, but got a judgment for 50 to come after Miss Linda. Okay? So in these situations, the filing is extremely important. Now, had, for example, that Miss Davenport had filed first, and then Travis had filed 200, he could have gone to Miss Davenport and asked her to do what's called a subordination, where he pays her some money to relinquish her priority loan so he could take seniority. Okay? But he's got to compensate her to do that in that situation.
And
Okay?
how, can she say how much?
Well, they come to negotiation. They talk it out and they come to an agreement.
Oh,
It's not a ton of money, but it's some money. If that makes sense. Like they're not gonna pay her $50,000. They probably pay her maybe up to $5,000
well,
to
that's right.
relinquish that thing. So
That's what she says, yes.
that's it. She says yes. She could say no. She could say no. I'm not gonna do it.
This is my fault.
Okay. Now, there is your secondary mortgage and your deed of trust. We've kind of talked about those. I want to move on because we're running out of time this evening. So I do want to kind of move along here. So the next one, like I said, we talked about the deed of trust and the mortgager. This gives you a neat little chart in regards to how it works. Okay. So this is something y'all might want to write. If you got your slides, you might want to write this down because it'll help you out. So what happens is, in a deed of trust, if you want to put under deed of trust, if you want to put, actually I might do it for y'all, kind of show you how I want it done. Let's test this real quick. So under deed of trust, there is trustor, or tricks. Now remember, RIX is female version of it. OR is male. Okay. Then there's going to be the trustee. And then there is the beneficiary. Okay. Now, as you can see here, I'm going to try to move this, maybe move this down here. Okay, so it's out of the way. Y'all can still see the chart. Now, the trustor in this situation, who do you think would be the trustor, Mr. Eugene?
That'd be the sale.
That would be not the seller,
Oh, buyer.
but the borrower or the buyer.
Or buyer.
Okay? So the borrower or the buyer is the one that is giving up
Yeah, right.
their interest.
Yeah.
Okay? So if the borrower is going to be the trustor, then who is going to be the beneficiary? Who's the borrower writing this up for? Whose interest?
For the seller.
Nope, look over there in that corner.
Lender.
It's the lender. Okay? The lender is the one that's going to benefit if you fail to pay, Mr. Eugene.
Yeah.
You fail to pay your mortgage, then they're going to relinquish the deed to the lender. Okay? So now that leaves us in the middle here. That's where everybody gets confused. Mr. Garrett, you mind turning your microphone on for me?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Garrett, question for you. Who then is the trustee? Who do you think is the trustee? And you know what, Mr. Garrett? I'm going to even be even nicer, and I'm going to ask Miss Leela to come on and help you. Miss Leela and Mr. Garrett, who do you think the trustee is?
Mr. Garrett, you in trouble.
I'll help you out here.
Is it?
The word starts with an A.
An A.
Uh-huh. I'll give you a little more help
Attorney?
there.
It can't be an attorney.
That is correct.
Oh.
It's going to be an attorney. And it oftentimes is going to be the lender's attorney. Okay? And the reason why is this, okay? The borrower is creating this little structure here, this deed of trust, okay? So the borrower, when they sign the deed, as you see this little arrow, is giving the deed to the trustee, which is the lender's attorney most of the time. So the lender's attorney is holding it. So their job is I'm going to hold, we'll put that up here. See if I can put word, here we go. They have to hold that deed until one of two things happen, okay? Either one, if the borrower fails to make payment, then guess what happens? The trustee will then let the judge know, be able to grant the deed to the lender, and that's where you'll see this little slide down, and deed would go to the lender. Okay? If the borrower pays off their debt, they will then end up file a release right here, which I can't move the word, but they would file a release over that hold, and that deed is now basically gone. It's no longer valid. Okay? So in this situation here, what is occurring is as you can see, the borrower is creating the trust, which is the deed, which is then giving it to the trustee to hold, and then the trustee will either release it or hold it. Okay? Now, if they release it, it means it's been paid in full. If they end up holding it, they'll hold it until they don't pay, and then when they don't pay, then they will follow that line and give the deed to the lender. So I get this question a lot of times. A lot of times at closing table. What happens at the closing table is clients filling out the paperwork, and they go over here. Remember, the only deed that the only person that signs the deed to transfer. So say Miss Leela is transferring Miss Davenport. She is the seller. She's transferring ownership to you. The deed that she signs, only Miss Leela signs it. You would never sign it. Only the seller signs the deed to transfer, never the seller. The buyer. So in that situation is, a lot of times when you're sitting at the table, I have this question all the time, we're sitting down at the table and the buyer will be going through their stuff, and then they see deed of trust, and they're looking at the deal, and it says that the buyer is transferring title to the lender. And immediately they're like, why am I giving away the property to the lender? Well, you're not really giving the property away to the lender. you're creating it to be held by a trustee. If you fail to pay, then what ends up happening is then the trustee can then forward it and the lender takes it. But if you do your due diligence and you do your job, they would release it and you get to keep your deed. Okay? So it's a process that you need to be aware of. Now, yes, this may seem very complicated. Okay? But if you are the creditor, you're the lender, you love this. You love this. Because you're going to get your property quick. Okay? Versus the mortgage part here, you'll notice the borrower and the lender, it goes back and forth. But here's the thing, okay? For the lender to get their property back from the borrower, they have to sue. So they have to go through the judicial realm. So if you want to put next to deed of trust, you want to put non-judicial, and over here with mortgage, you want to put judicial. That'll show you the differences. Because under deed of trust, it's non-judicial. Okay? You don't have to go to court to get your deed. Over here in a mortgage, you got to go to court. You got to go through all those processes. If you've ever dealt with the court system, let me tell you, minimum 6 months behind. Okay? Sometimes longer. All right? And then, of course, down here with contract for deed, if you notice, there's no bank. It's the seller and the buyer. But that's the problem. Is that in that situation is with the seller and the buyer here, guess what happens? If Aiden, you go put Mr. Stephan in that agreement with Mr. Eugene, Mr. Stephan's the buyer, Mr. Eugene's the seller, well, guess what? It comes down to that old saying, if you've been in school before, my mom used to work in the school district. What's the key thing? It's he said, she said.
Yep.
And how's that work? Good luck, okay? Good luck. Because what is Mr. Eugene going to say when Mr. Stephan says, well, I tried to pay my last payment, but Mr. Eugene was nowhere to be found? Well, guess what here? Mr. Eugene going to say, I've been in the house the whole time. Where were you?
Why didn't you come?
Why didn't you knock on the door? I did. Prove it. Prove it. Now, I can tell you this. Thankfully, we have cameras on our phones now. But let me ask Miss Davenport, Miss Linda, back when y'all were younger, did y'all have cell phones?
No, we had party lines.
So in that situation, what happened is you ended up, you couldn't go over there and take a picture back in the day. Nowadays, what can happen is Mr. Grossman could easily go over there, turn on his camera, and as he walks up, and knock on the door and see Mr. Eugene. He can take a picture there. Here, Mr. Eugene, here's the check and everything, and be recording it. Okay?
Yep.
Right? So that can happen in those situations. Mr. Eugene, Stephan can prove it now. Okay? But back earlier, guys and gals, I'm old enough to say we didn't have cell phones when I was born. Okay? I remember when I was younger, my mama used to. No joke, Travis, by the way.
Oh,
My mom's cell phone when I was younger was the size of this cake almost.
Oh, God.
Okay. I remember her carrying this big old satchel, throwing in the car.
Your father still has that phone.
Still
Keep trying to get rid of it. Don't do it.
How's those texts going on for him on that one?
Hey,
But I mean, at this time, you end up, it's completely different. But yes, under a contract for deed, there's no normally attorneys here. It's normally he said, she said, and a lot of times it's Mr. Eugene who went online, found some forms on Google, and went over, printed them off, and had Mr. Grossman sign them. And in that situation, good luck, Mr. Grossman, proving up anything because it's worthless. Okay? So very key in these situations when you're dealing with these, you need to be aware of it. Because guys and gals, it happens a lot more. Unfortunately, in this business, we do see these things. Okay? We do see these different situations where people are going over and they end up, they're not basically giving all of the information. Now, there are also special provisions in these situations as well. special provisions, understand, there are things such as late payment penalty. Now, we all understand what late payments is. I don't need to spend time on that. You understand what a late payment penalty is. But here's the big one, okay? Look at bullet 3. See, a lot of people love to argue and gripe and everything. If a Democrat's in office, they hate it, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you borrow money, you better be thankful, okay? Because I'm going to tell you something. If it wasn't for Obama and what he did, this would have not have gone away. Prepayment penalties are this. See, this is how it works. Mr. Aiden, what would you do if you went to class this semester? Okay? Go to class this semester, you work really, really hard, and you complete all your work, do everything, spend tons of hours, and you complete all your work, and you finish it 1 week before classes are over.
Throw a party.
You'd be happy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then you turn it into Professor Nobles here, turn it all into me, and you say, Mr. Nobles, here's all my paperwork, everything done, nice and stacked, neat and everything. I did everything you said, Mr. Nobles, here you go. And I go and I say, F here, get out of my class, you failed. How'd you feel?
I raised hell.
Yeah, right?
Kiss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Eugene, how about you?
I'd be ticked.
Yeah. How many would be happy? Anybody here? Matt Travis, right?
I knew it
Yeah. Nobody is going to be happy with that situation at all. No one in their right mind would.
Except him.
Except me. I'm like, yeah, well, that's great for me. There you go. One less student. Okay? But here's the thing. That's the same concept in regards to prepayment penalty. What happens is Aiden, say that you ended up, that you worked extra hard, and you were working 60 hours a week for, say, 10 years to pay off your mortgage early to Miss Linda, and you go in and you write that last check and you submit it to Miss Linda, and instead of 30 years, you paid it off in 10, and you send it to her, and you're like, yes. You go there and you call Miss Leela, and you say, Miss Leela, we're going partying. Okay, we're going to go party.
Leila, we're going to Northgate.
There you go. We're going to go party. Okay?
We going where?
She's in Houston, so
Oh.
she don't know nothing about that Northgate.
Sorry.
But you go there and you tell her, you say, we're going partying, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you go and you say, I'm ready. I'm ready to go party. And then next thing you know, 30 days after you pay, you get this nice little envelope here from Miss Linda, and you open it up, and you think, man, I got my title, I got my deed. And you pull it out, and it says that you owe 25% of the total loan for prepayment penalty because you paid off your loan early.
There goes party.
How's that feel, Mr. Aiden?
Pretty upsetting.
Pretty upsetting,
Yeah.
right? And guess what? Because you paid off early, you don't get to pay that little bit off. No, that's a lump sum payment that you get to pay.
Great.
So if you borrow $200,000, you got to pay her $50,000 in prepayment penalty. That's what that does. It's punishing you for paying your debt off early. That's why I tell my students every semester, I put that as in regards to grading. You go do everything, because what does your professor always tell you? Do the best you can, give it your best. If you do, you pass, whatever, just do your best. Do the best you can. And then I tell you that, and then you come turn in the paperwork, and I go, oh, nope, F, here, you failed. Do you believe me anymore?
No.
It's lost all credibility, didn't it?
Uh-huh.
So, the same thing happens here. His prepayment penalty, President Obama, when he was in office, that was the key thing he said. He says, I don't understand why banks should have to, they already profit off of the middle class so much. I don't understand why they need to pay prepayment penalties. I don't understand it. And he use executive action plus Congress to get rid of it. So you're gonna say then, wait a minute, Mr. Nobles, wait. Then why are we even talking about it? Because here's the thing. You can't retroactively go back to the loans that had been written prior to that law and change it. So what happens is say, Mr. Eugene, you end up in a situation, you're a realtor, and you got a client that comes to you, and say, we'll use Ms. Davenport, she comes to you, she says, Mr. Eugene, I would like to pay off my house early. What do you think? Well, had you not known this, what would you have told her? Sure. Well, heck yeah, Ms. Davenport, yeah, you want to pay it off? Yes. That gives you more money in your pocket. So Ms. Davenport goes, she pays off her note, and then she gets hit, wham, 25% prepayment penalty.
She's gonna come after you.
She's hunting you down. She's gonna hunt you down.
$1,000 on top of what?
Okay?
Honey, here's that.
Yeah, she gonna hunt you down.
You got to pay, baby.
Oh, no.
So in that situation, you in no way, no shape and form, do you go and ever tell your client. That's what I always tell my clients all the time. I tell them this. If anybody asks me, I say, can I see your mortgage? Can I see your deed of trust? I want to run through this and I want to look for this prepayment penalty. Because there are loans, guys and gals. Remember, this was only recently done. Maybe about 6-7 years ago this happened.
Couldn't they just bring it back if they wanted?
What do you mean?
Like, say Biden wants to bring it back. He uses Congress and does all that and brings back.
Well, it's not, so Democrats do not want this because it is not fair to the low income and middle class. Republicans love this. Why do you think they love this? Because the fact is they are out for big business. That's how they make money. So when you have big business, who's big business most of the time? Banks. So banks lobby, and I'm telling you, when Obama was in office and this got cut, whoo, people wanted his head because of the fact they took a ton of their money. This is how banks got away with it. They got away with it. You ever paid off your mortgage or your car early? Not your mortgage, car early? You feel good? Yeah, you feel good about it. Miss Linda, how'd you feel if you would have, after you paid it off? Here's your bill. You owe us another $10,000.
I'd be very upset.
Yeah,
Me too. She owes me $150,000.
I'm telling you. So in that situation is yes. A lot of people actually thought that Trump was going to bring this back. After Obama came or was out, they thought Trump was going to bring it back. That was one of the key things they thought. That's the first thing he was going to do. He didn't. But the thing is yes, this could come back. It could. But what you have to understand is from this situation, though, the reason you need to know it is because your client may end up, and I've had clients do this before, your client may end up saying, I want to pay my mortgage off. I want to pay it off. Okay? That's great. That's wonderful. Okay? But I need to make certain that there's no prepayment. Now, yes, Ms. Linda.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
For instance, I'm gonna use my scenario, is we sold our home and during all that, the title company and all made sure that the prepayment penalties, there was
Does
none.
not apply in a sale. Because the fact is you have a right to sell your property and upgrade.
Okay,
Okay? That's fine. But they don't want you, remember, the whole purpose of this is to make the banks richer. Not you, banks. So if you happen to just come in with a ton of money and pay it off, they don't want to give you that deed. Okay? They want to keep that deed as long as possible. If you sell it, you're not getting the deed, they're just titling it to another person. But another bank's making more money off it. And it just keeps going and going. They don't though want you to have that deed. Okay? So in that situation if you sell a property, you're good. Where it hurts you is if you go in there and just happen to come into a lot of cash and pay it off. Okay? Now here's my question. Is there a way around it?
There probably is.
Of course, always is, right?
Yep, you just
Okay.
gotta know Justin Nobles.
That's what clients always tell me. So Miss Davenport came into my office and said, Justin, here is my mortgage. Here's my mortgage. And I start going through here, okay, and I start looking. And then I notice that there's a prepayment penalty. Do you think, Aiden, I'm gonna tell her, oh, no, I'm sorry, Miss Davenport, you know.
No.
No, I ain't gonna do that. You don't run off a client. What do? You say,
Yeah.
Miss Davenport, I happen to have another gentleman that he is a lender, and he can end up getting you refinanced into a different loan that will, in that situation, ma'am, it will get you into one that is no prepayment penalty, and then you can pay off the loan. So what happens is, she may have to pay maybe $1,000 more, but guess what happens? She doesn't have to worry about that prepayment penalty.
Right.
You see where I'm coming from? So prepayment penalties are very key. You never tell your client just to pay off. You need to review their documents. And again, I don't recommend, if you're a new agent, reviewing the document. You need to review it with your broker or an experienced agent that's been in the field for a long time. Okay? Because of the fact is if you read it wrong, there's actually, let me see. Yep, there's this one. Where is it? No, it's not up there. There's one clause, if y'all want to add to it, called acceleration clause. Okay? And what happens is if you screw up something, okay, it accelerates the debt instantaneously. So it ends up, if you screw something up or give bad advice, it can accelerate their note, and now your client went to paying monthly notes, now the whole thing is due. Okay, so it's always best you talk to your broker or an experienced agent to guide you. Okay, that acceleration is very similar to this due on sale clause. What that basically means, and the reason they put this in was another one. Say Travis ended up, he told Justin, he said, you know, man, you got bad credit and all. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sell you my property. You give me $50,000 cash, and then I'm going to let you assume my note, okay? But you're going to continue to pay it, but I'm going to sell it to you and transfer title to you. So Travis sends it on over to me. I do all the paperwork and all, and I start paying the note. Well, technically, Travis's note is due when? When he sold me the property. So if Mr. Travis sold me the property and gave me a deed, even though I'm still paying his mortgage, guess what? It's sold. His note is now due and payable now. So Mr. Eugene, you own a house right now and you got a mortgage. Say that you wanted to help Stephan out back there. He's a good guy, and you said, you know what, Stephan, I want to help you out. I got 2.99% interest, so you just pay me $50,000 up front. I'll let you move in, and you just pay the rest of the note off to the lender, because I want to help you get a house. You want to be nice to him, okay? So you go over here, you pay Stephan, or Stephan pays you. You go on and you grant over a deed to him. He's got a deed, and so Stephan is happy. Well, guess what? Miss Leela, your banker, finds out of this transaction. She's going to say, you sold that property, and because you did, this due and sell clause is effective immediately. You owe us $200,000. And at that point, the deed's already been drafted where you transferred it to Stephan. Good luck getting it to go back to the way it was. You're pretty much screwed. Okay? So you're screwed on your credit, and Mr. Stephan is going to be evicted because he doesn't have right to be there. Okay? So again, not something you want to mess around with. Now, some of them will have assumption clauses. And an assumption clause in this particular situation is where you can assume the debt. Okay? And that's what we talked about. If it has an assumption clause, then Mr. Eugene, this clause, the due on sale, would not enact because it has an assumption. Okay? Now, I know I'm running out of time. I really want to talk about this one and then we'll be done. So just, this one I think y'all will love to hear. And I think you'll find this interesting. So if you've been sleeping on me, wake up for just a few minutes because this is something that's very good, okay? So what happens in this situation is, there is an assumption, we talked about assumption, that's where you basically assume another person's deal. But, this is my favorite part. Subject 2. So Mr. Travis, actually, you know what, Miss Davenport, Miss Davenport and Miss Linda and Mr. Eugene, y'all are not licensed at the moment, okay? And those of you that are sitting online are not licensed at the moment. So this applies to y'all. So say Miss Davenport, you're walking down, or you're driving home tonight, you're driving on home, and as she's driving home, this is my drive.
All over the road.
Yep, all over the road. This is the way how we drive here. But she's driving home, and as she's driving home, she sees a for sale by owner.
Oh, Lord.
And she sees that that house is yours, Miss Linda. So Miss Davenport takes a picture of the phone number. She takes a picture. She gets home. Okay. She goes to the house. She gets there, and she calls you, Miss Linda. And she says, Miss Linda, I'd like to know how much you're selling your house for. And Miss Linda says, well, I would like to sell my house for $200,000. And Miss Davenport says, oh, Miss Linda, no, can't do that. I'll give you 150. Miss Linda talks to Mr. Eugene and they discuss it. And they say, you know what? We really need the money. We'll go ahead and take it for 150. Well, here's the thing though. Miss Davenport, we're going to say, does not have $150,000 sitting in her checking account. Okay? But she happens to know Miss Leela. Okay?
Oh, Lord.
And Miss Leela, she has a few million sitting in her bank and she buys houses a lot. Okay? So Miss Davenport calls Miss Leela and says, Miss Leela, says, I would like to I got a house that I've put under contract and I put it subject to, so I can assign it to another individual. Okay? And she says, Miss Davenport tells Miss Leela, I will sell it to you for $175,000. Okay? Miss Leela's like, well, what's the value of it? She says it's $200,000. Now, Mr. Eugene, Miss Linda, you're getting 150. Y'all are happy. If Miss Davenport sells it to Miss Leela for 175, you're walking away with 25,000. And Miss Leela gets what? $25,000 profit from just selling the house. She holds it and sells it. So everybody's happy in this situation. That is one of the key things about subject to. It's often called real estate wholesaling. Okay? It is where loans or sometimes contracts can be flipped or sold off and end up making a profit. Okay? The thing is, however, is Miss Leela and Miss Davenport and everybody online and Mr. Eugene, Miss Linda, all of y'all in this situation, y'all can do it. Y'all can all end up, you can all go over and y'all can end up, y'all can do these things because you're not licensed. When you are licensed, however, guess what? Not that you can't do it, it's a lot more stricter. You have to provide certain disclosures, you have to provide certain information, you have to provide a lot of things. Okay? However, if a person, and this is what I tell people all the time, they'll say after I talk about it, they're like, well, I'm not going to do that. No. If a person really needs money, and they really need money, even if you if Miss Davenport was licensed and she went back there and told Mr. Eugene, Miss Linda, your house is worth $200,000, but it's going to sit 6 months before you can get it done. Now we can list it for 6 months, or I can go talk to Miss Leela. She'll probably come in at 175 or 150. Would you do it? 150 something, right? They take it. Again, you don't want to just give up on it. Okay? You want to try to you want to look at it from different angles. But it is imperative, by all means, that you understand that there are different ways that you can work contracts. Am I correct, Mr. Darren?
You repeat that again?
They were sleeping. Woke them up.
Miss Linda, Mama knows.
You're not helping me here, Darren.
If y'all could see me right now, I got y'all on an 85-inch big screen while Heather's cooking dinner.
Oh my God.
I'm still learning how to use this thing.
Wave at him, Miss Linda. There you go.
Can you see me?
Congratulations. Y'all are with me the rest of the night. I don't know how to unmute myself. Heather!
Where's your better half?
I'm stuck.
I got it.
Well, Mr. Darren, real quick, while I got you on, I was saying, really concept. You can make pretty good money, right? He knows what I'm talking about.
Y'all hear me again?
Yeah.
All right, check it out. I did some of those flips this year, and I think we pocketed about $180,000 on 2 deals, and those are probably 30 days apart from each other on 2 deals. So yes, there's a lot of money you can make if you're a hustler and you know what you're looking for, which I happen to.
There you go. There you go. And that is a proven person. That's not me talking. It's a proven person that's done it.
And I did that with no real estate license.
That's right. Hey, you should see these eyes in here, Darren. They're thinking. The grills are grinding in here right now.
Oh, they have no idea. Yeah, it's. I've probably been pondering on getting my license for about 2 years now, just because we can do and say things that you can't when you have a real estate license. But there's a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunities we missed out. Me and Heather both having them. So hopefully we team up and we make that little 180,000 look like nothing, like crumbs.
Right.
You gonna get your helicopter?
2 helicopters. You gotta have one for you, Mama.
You gonna teach me how to fly?
No, I ain't doing all that. We're gonna have people flying us. Y'all might be stuck with me. I'm stuck on here again.
Here, I'll help you out there, and I'll help you out here. Let's see here. There we go. You're good. So, but no, he gave you a good example. But yes, you can make money. You can make money in it. There's many different options. I am going to go ahead, though, and kind of let y'all kind of look up these other ones. They're not really difficult. Release is basically like we talked before about how the loan gets released. The other exculpatory, non-recourse, extensions, these are all different types of clauses that you can just Google and kind of read through them. I hit majority of the topics that I wanted to hit this evening. I hope you all learned a lot. I know I ran over a little today, but again, I wanted to provide y'all a lot of information, a lot of context, because what we talked about here provides a lot of detail. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Give me just a second.